Okay, welcome to Darren Brown Extreme Sports, and the more observant of you might notice that Darren Brown is looking very youthful and good looking today, and so yeah, guest starring Tim Swait today, that's me, largely because as you look around you can see it's not a brilliant day. It looks very stable, literally nobody is climbing, not seen a single paraglider or well, there's no other hang gliders that we've seen in the air, and none of the paragliders seem to be going up, so I think today's going to be a top to bottom pretty certainly. So Darren's just going to drive the car down. He's handed all his camera and filming gear over to me, so I'm going to be doing some filming for you and taking you through what's probably just going to be a sled ride to the bottom. So we're on the Hobold launch in Interlaken. The lane bottom landing field which I'll be landing in is just over the edge there, so very easy to get to from here. It's quite a shallow launch, and as you can see there's almost no wind at all on it. In fact, it's a little bit switchy, and every now and again you get a slight breeze from the back, but mostly it's coming up the front. All the paragliders, including the tandems, are getting off fine, but no one's actually really climbing. They're all having to run a lot, so it's going to need a very committed, good run today. I'll probably try and go round to the right where we went yesterday and did get thermals from, so I'll go and have a look around there, see if there's anything working. If there is, then maybe I'll get up, but I'm not putting much hope on it, and then I'll head down to the bottom landing field and talk you through it all the way down. So when you see hang glider pilots standing around on launch not doing anything, waiting to go, there's a few reasons why that might be. First off, it might just be the pilot is what we call a faffer. Secondly, it might be because they're waiting until it's safe to launch, until the wind's blowing up the hill, which is fine at the moment, it's perfectly safe to launch. Thirdly, they might be waiting to try and maximise their chances of hooking into a thermal and going up, so which is what I'm doing at the moment. I'm watching what other people are doing, trying to get a gauge for where the air might be working or not. So the key to doing a nil wind or very light wind launch on a fairly shallow slope like we've got today is, first of all, you really have to run, but just as important as that is keeping pitch control of the glider. So what I'm going to be aiming to do is actually to be pulling the nose of the glider down to keep my feet on the ground for as long as I can. So I don't want to be taking off with just enough airspeed. I want to have my feet on the ground to be really running, and so I can let the bar go back to trim, go out to trim position, and hopefully fly away with quite a bit of excess airspeed. A bit of extra energy gives you maybe a few extra meters altitude on a day like today, which might matter, and also it just makes the launch so much safer because you're coming away with a lot more energy when you're close to the ground. So now the only reason I'm not going is because there's a paraglider right in front of me who looks like he's just about to go any moment now. I think he's a student, seems to have an instructor instructing him. But there is quite buoyant air up there, so I'm quite keen to launch when I do get a chance. Where he'll get a little bit steeper. Windsock's completely dead, telltale isn't really doing anything. Let's see if I get a breath coming up. Okay, telltale is coming up the slope, that's good. Windsock's not really moving, but it's just about up. So at least I've got some headwind, no tailwind. That's dead again now. Looks like there's a little bit of a thermal, maybe just in front of the launch. There we go. Oh, that was a crap launch. What a rubbish launch after just doing that briefing. To be fair, it was quite hard. So there's some beeps on the vario, but not actually gaining much. I think you probably just got my worst ever launch on camera then. Now you've got to put that out of my mind, concentrate on the next stage, which is going to be trying to stay up. There was nothing in that gully. I turned around the back of it, not going up at all. Not got enough height to get back across this ridge, so I'm going to have to go out along it and around the end of the nose, which isn't the problem. I've got loads of height to do that with. But there's been no lift all the way along here. There's a paraglider turning over there. Might actually be thermaling. I had a bit more buoyancy here, but it's not really going up. But there's a paraglider climbing quite strongly just over there. The problem is I haven't really got enough height to get across the ridge to get to it. And also not being very familiar with the topography of this place, I don't want to just dive that way over the edge and hope, because I don't know what's over there. So I'm going to fly a bit more conservatively around it and hopefully still come in underneath where he's climbing. And I've still got the option to peel off that way if I need to, if I haven't got enough height to get around here. Oh, but there's some lift here, a bit buoyant. Not enough to turn in, but enough to just make this a bit more comfortable. Okay, so now I'm committed to going round over the nose this way. That paraglider is actually got quite a nice thermal there, so I've got a couple of winds coming up from the ground, maybe get into it. Ooh, small split there. Is it going to be enough to turn in? No, that's just the bump as I come over this edge. Where his thermal was, it's just along here. The problem is I'm up below the edge here, which makes it much harder to catch the thermal from when you're below an edge than above it. No. Right, it's sinking worse here. We go back to where it was lifting. Damn it, I've lost maybe 100 feet on that beat. So I think that little bubble there is about my only chance. Still there when we get back to it. Something, not much. It's giving me a bit of a kick into the hill, so maybe it's a bit stronger just out from the hill. Sounds better. Gained about 100 feet, almost nothing, but he's stopping me going down anyway. So you notice I'm not flying close into the trees today, because it's the kind of day when it feels a bit rough and snarly and you don't know what's going to suddenly give you a kick in and chuck you in towards those trees, so I'm keeping plenty of spacing out away from them. Is that worth to them? It's just these little bubbles which are quite enough to turn in. Yeah, you see that's only 50 feet per minute. and it's rough and it's small. There's no way I'll be able to work that. So there's a couple of paraglides in the bottom of the landing field, but they're kiting their wings around, which is a bit annoying. I mean, I'm well high, so it's no bother to me, but they put them down now, that's good. But yeah, paraglider pilots, please don't pop your wings up in the landing field, even if you haven't noticed any hanggies coming into land. You never know, there might be one you've not noticed, and if you pop your wing up right in front of them, it's going to be very bad news for them. At least those paragliders are giving me a good indication of the wind direction. So it's coming from the lake, so I'm going to be landing towards it. Looks from the windsock like there actually is a little bit of wind there, so I don't think it's going to be a nil wind landing. But I'm going to try and do a really big flare anyway, just to be on the safe side. I don't really know what it's going to do. It's maybe going to be a bit switchy as well. Oh, this is rough here, so yeah, maybe it will be. So I'll make sure I land nowhere near those guys in case they do that again when I'm coming in. VG set for landing. Loads of kite still, but I'm going to unzip my harness just so I'm ready. I've got the big windsock there, which is indicating some wind. There's a little light streamer there as well, which is a lot more sensitive. So as I get closer to the field, I'll see that. Checking around that there's no one else coming into land. Only other traffic I can see is a paraglider a lot higher than me. Yeah, the streamer's showing the same wind indication as the windsock. The windsock's dropped now, that's looking good. But the streamer's still showing me, so I'm going to be landing towards the lake, but a bit down the slope as well actually. I'm going to do a 360 over the landing field, just so I can keep my eye on that streamer and see if it switches at the last minute. I'll switch my landing approach direction. But I'm clearly drifting over the ground in the direction I thought I would, so that's a good sign. Into wind now, turn downwind. Really slightly extra speed, turning downwind to the uprights, blow over the trees, straight downwind now, a little bit low. That's a bit of a kick there, a bit of speed. Low to speed. Oh, well, good landing anyway. So takeoff was absolutely shit. As I say, about the worst takeoff I've ever done, and it's all on camera now. So all the YouTubers can give me hell for that, probably rightly, but at least I nailed the landing, so that's something. And had a good go at getting up, even though I didn't. And you notice I'm clearing the field as quickly as I can. The paragliders are quite high above me, did some crazy acro stuff, and it's now just about to land. Okay, so just as a recap, so it wasn't exactly a good flight. It wasn't one that I'll remember for years, except for perhaps that takeoff, which was pretty terrible. So yeah, a few things to learn from it though. So the first was that, as I say, I don't think I've ever done a takeoff that's been that scary or that close before, and at least it's on film, so I'm going to be watching that film and working out all the things I did wrong so I don't do them again. I can think of a few to start with. So the first one was because I was waiting behind a paraglider that wasn't launching when I wanted to launch. I was then too impatient that as soon as he had launched, I went, even though it wasn't really a particularly good point to have picked in the cycle to launch at that time. The wind was barely blowing up the hill if at all. I wonder if I even caught a slight bit of tailwind. I think I did do a fairly good run. I'm not quite sure exactly what happened, so I'm going to have to watch the video to know. I know that I had a little bit of excess speed left out, so I could actually just push out enough on the bar that I could convert some of that excess speed and didn't crash, but it was pretty close, so I definitely won't be doing that again. Next point to learn from, I think, as far as the circuit, as far as the staying up was concerned, I don't think it was really possible to stay up today, to be honest. I've not seen another paraglider or hang glider attempt to stay up, so I think I'm pretty content that I went down. So I think going to the right was a mistake in hindsight, but it seemed like the right thing to do at the time, because then it meant that I came in on that ridge well below people that were paragliders that were just about maintaining above me. So but I was too low to make use of it by then. I think didn't take any unnecessary risks getting close into the trees. It's kind of tempting to really try and hang on by your fingernails and scrape your wingtips through the trees, and there are days when it's fairly, you know, the conditions are fairly benign, that you can afford to get a little bit closer, and then there's days like today when you could tell it was a pretty rough day actually, and especially because if you look round, that was the ridge that I was soaring, and actually thinking about it now, the valley wind is coming from that direction, so it probably is curling slightly around that edge, and I think that explains why it was a bit bumpy in that corner, and that's why I really didn't want to get close, tight in there. And then the landing was pretty good. There was quite a bit of headwind, so to be honest it was quite an easy landing anyway. I did a really big flare just because you can see Darren's very shiny Insta 360 camera on there, and I absolutely didn't want to be whacking the nose and whacking that into the ground, so I did probably a bigger flare than I really needed to, but it worked out nicely. Nice landing, and yeah, so not an easy flight or particularly one of the more enjoyable ones, but useful, educational all the same.